You know that phone freaking device that I was telling you about calling the Vatican? Well, as college guys, that's exactly what they did. They built them and they sold them to the other guys in the
Yeah, that was our first company. Our first sales were phone freaking devices, and we were young. So anyway, I'm going up this ladder of video games, better video games, to this terminal that can talk to computers, and then a club started up, and it was a club of young people interested about what computers, once we could afford our own computers at home, what they were going to do to life, how they were going to make the small little guy have a tool that made him as powerful as the biggest corporation. He was going to be as important as the CFO in the company because he could write a program and type in the financial numbers and get the output right on his own desk. Didn't have to go through huge million-dollar computers with programmers punching cards and feeding cards into machines. It was a whole new world coming. And we're going to educate us better because a kid could type in an answer to a question and be graded right instantly, told if it was right or wrong. Our minds were going to be using their full potential. And I loved, all these social dreams. They were so important to me. It was the most important thing I ever did. Every 2 weeks, every Wednesday night, sitting in this meeting, 500 people, in an auditorium at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. And I sat there and I never once spoke. I never once raised my hand. I was too shy. I would sit in the very back row, but I listened. And this is a revolution. And I'm kind of a rebel spirit too. I wanted to be part of a real revolution that had meaning, and we weren't going to have a big enough revolution to end the Vietnam War, so this was it. And I decided my talents were designing equipment. I know how to take my little terminal that calls faraway computers in Boston. Why don't I put this microprocessor chip? I studied it. I said, that microprocessor is like those computers I designed in high school. It does the same things. I'm in business. I'm going to finally have my own computer. I saw that I could finally come up with a way to afford my own computer. Put in my own little microprocessor and some RAM. For the first time, enough RAM to run a computer program was available at the price that could make it affordable to a person. And I built my own little computer right on my terminal. I would type into it, and it would type to my TV set. Wow. I started, and I passed it out for free. I was doing this totally altruistic, no idea of a company or anything. And then Steve came back from Oregon where he was working on a farm. And, well, he was working on some kind of farm, some kind of orchard, some LSD thing, whatever. So he came back and he saw it and he said, wow, all these people love your design, but they don't have the building skills. Why don't we make a PC board so they just plug the parts in, solder it, and it's done. And they don't have to build it really. And not sure if we're going to make our money. It's hard to figure out the odds. And he says, doesn't matter if we make money. The two of us will have our own company. We've done so many things together that was so important, so appropriate. Who could ever turn that down? Sold the most valuable thing I owned, Hewlett-Packard calculator. I got $500 for it. I actually only got $250. And that was the most valuable thing I had, and that was the money we started the company with. And in the garage days, okay, well, first of all, I loved my company. I am so loyal. I would never start a company on the side of Hewlett-Packard where I worked. I'm going to work for Hewlett-Packard as an engineer, an honored engineer for all my life. And I would never start a company on the side, so I proposed it to them. I wanted them to do this thing. I told them what they could build, how much it would cost, and levels of management. They all turned me down. And I got turned down 6 times.
6 times.
6 times. That was the first of 6 times I got turned down. Then Steve Jobs came up with an order for $50,000. We were supposed to build for the local computer store our boards with all the parts in them. $50,000. My salary was only $25,000. This was shock. And I said, where do we get the money to build them? We don't have any money. We have no bank accounts. We have no relatives that can loan us money. So we got the parts on 30 days credit, built up the computers, delivered them to the store, and got paid cash. And that was the little half year, you'd call it, the garage period. Every board got built somewhere else, passed through the garage for testing, and driven to the store. And it was, but in the meantime, in 3 months, I had designed the computer that was going to change the world, the colorful Apple II.
Well, you've taken us to the point where you've designed Apple I and Apple II. When you look forward now, when you look at what you've done, do you understand or do you foresee the impact that Apple has had on the lives of the people around us? And at what, when you look at it, at what point did it actually hit you?
Well, Apple has had a big impact on us because it's such a great company. And that goes to all of the I products and what they mean in our life and how well they work. But having the company with the right culture from day one was a very important part too. And I mean, we started out, nobody ever thought a computer would have color. The Apple II, our first logo was 6-colored logo because we were bringing color to the world. Somehow, one night, You know, I remember it happening. I got this idea for using a $1 chip to create color by a way that no book would ever say color is done for color television. And would a $1 device work instead of a $1,000 machine to generate color? Would it work? And when it worked, Steve and I knew we had a big company, raise money, we're going to really make something. Well, now, over time, our products became the most friendly. Really, to bring computers into the home, it was much less important to build a computer. It was much more important to convince people, this is marketing, to convince people that a computer belonged in the house instead of in a stale, you know, factory floor or something. And we worked very hard at that and very much brought that to the world. So computers being fanciful, I like. And then Apple encountered people that really believed in this machine was so much different in a new world than others. They joined the company and brought in the ideas of making computers that anybody could figure out. And that was important. Jeff Raskin came in and he said, you've got to make computers that are so easy, somebody, a little 10-year-old can just figure it out without any instruction at all. Somebody who doesn't know a thing about computers can figure it out without having ever used one. And that got us on this path of we associated our company with ease of use from day one. And that's really what you see in today's products. Now, Steve Jobs' design on part of the first Apple II, he designed the plastic case. Okay, not the one that was shown here, but one before it. He designed that. From then on, the design of the case and the look of products has always been, you know, supreme importance to Steve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you think of this, I mean, like today your life is synonymous with Apple. Well, let's get an idea here. How many people have an iPhone product in their hands today? Here. Okay, how many have Androids? and just for a correction, because he was quoted the other day that suggesting that he liked Android better than iPhone. I gather you don't.
Oh, no. My main phone is always an iPhone. I've always liked it better, but I've given them fair comparisons. And the Android does a lot of good things that I even wish the iPhone would do. And I believe that when you're making a product, you learn from the other products what sort of features seem to, the ones you like and you feel, this is a really nice way to do something. This is something I like. That's the direction you should head your company in. Okay, so what's the latest app that you've downloaded and why do you like it? The latest app I downloaded, I didn't quite have time to get it working. I think I discovered it on the plane ride in. And it's one where I can actually type by talking. You know how you can speak into your iPhone and it types for you? But it actually connects through a program on the iPhone and a program on my Mac that I'm now speaking into. Any program on the Mac will follow the typing. So it uses the voice recognition stuff of the iPhone, but sends it to the Mac to type for you. We're going to come back to this issue of future in just a minute, but last week there was an enormous amount of debate over the Stop Online Piracy Act, and we saw companies like Wikipedia go dark for a day over this issue, protesting the legislation that the federal government's the U.S. federal government's bringing in. You have a particular opinion about SOPA and about PIPA, and I'd like for you to tell us what it is. Okay, I'm going to have to assume that people know what SOPA is, but basically it's, you know, there are a lot of people that are basically passing around every movie as files on your hard disk for free anywhere in the world, and the movie makers don't get paid for it. And so SOPA says... It's all copyright infringement. And it's issues. Copyright infringement, so people can be... If you set up a server to send it out to a lot of people in the United States, you're guilty. And everyone agrees you're guilty of IP infringement, and you can get caught and go to jail. But they'll put it off in another country that doesn't have the laws. And so over the internet, anybody can download their movies from the server in another country. The bill is about let's stop the access to the foreign servers that are doing this. And the bill, and I think we all agree that we don't really want stealing of intellectual property. I have a lot of musician friends. I have a lot of people in the movie business as friends. There are people in publishing that they just, hey, you have a right to your personal property. If I give it to you, you know, you keep your word. You're not going to distribute it for free. We're caught between the past and the future. In the past, everything was hard physical piece of atoms. Today, it's very difficult to take an iPhone and just buy a bunch of little cheap parts and make your own iPhone and sell it for $100. It's very difficult to do that, but that would be the equivalent thing of taking a movie and just telling your computer to duplicate it for anybody who asks for it. It's the same sort of theft. But the trouble is, when things are movies and songs, they are just bits. They're just bits of information. They're not They're not hard physical things, and it's very, very easy for anybody to duplicate it. So it might be that way off in the future, the technology, what people are capable of is what's be allowed. If you're able to steal something easy, is it legal? You know, I don't think so. I'm very ethical, and I bring my kids up to be ethical. I don't want them to think whatever you can get away with is legal. That's bad thinking for young people, and yet they're all doing this, stealing the stuff. Well, now SOPA is a law trying to attack the problem. The problem is I'm against SOPA because it's a law, because it comes from the government, and it overrides, it has, basically there are people who can just make a decision on their own. This site is infringing. We shut the site off. The site might be doing a lot of good things too. There's no due process, and every time the government and the prosecutors have had the ability to go out and pursue criminals, they wind up getting a lot of people that really aren't criminals under the laws that they're being charged with, but they have ways to loopholes to get around everything in the world, and the law will be unfairly applied. There's no formula that says only the bad guys are going to be the ones subject to this law, and so I'm very much against it. It also is internet censorship. Some of us want the internet to be pure and uncensored. Well, that's actually a joke, because everything you type is going through whoever provides the internet to your business or your home, and they're seeing every single thing you type anyway. We have this idea of net neutrality, which I've been a very big sponsor of, and I even attended our FCC meeting when they voted on net neutrality, and I wish it were stronger than ever. The gatekeepers that just get in the way, like the movie studios, manage to charge unfair amounts of money for you to get at stuff that information should be free. There's a part of the world, a lot of people that say all information should be free and unrestricted. Well, we don't want the internet to be what do you call it, when your information is stopped, censored. We don't want censorship of any kind, but we really do want censorship of some kinds, and we do have it. There's certain kinds of things that you just, you know.
You and I last night, we were talking about this, and I asked you at what point did you think that SOPA could be, if it's going to be redrafted, at what point could we have some kind of protection against piracy of intellectual property? And I think you told me that you don't believe there's ever a point where you can get to that with SOPA.
No, because you could write into the SOPA bill that there will be all sorts of courts that have to hear evidence and give orders. You have to show cause. When you're the accuser, the burden of proof should be on you. But SOPA is something that just makes a guy a king, making the decisions himself, judge, jury, executioner, and there's no due process, and it won't be used fairly. And even if you wrote in that it has to be oversight by courts and all that, it'll still get worked around and abused. I just don't trust it. It's never, I'm just a distrust of government type person.
You know, for a journalist, I love hearing things like that. Why do you think it is then that, you know, what's the vested interest for a company like Wikipedia to then go dark if you're on the one side and they're on the other side?
No vested interest, other than most of their clients that really support them strongly are the people that are basically for the internet and its wideness and its universality, and Wikipedia represents that. So they're in link with their peers, how they're viewed by their audience. It's kind of like the Republican Party can't say things that turn off a whole ton of Republicans.